Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining me here today. If you found yourself here, there may be a message of your hope for healing journey, soul's evolution, transformation, or simply information. So, if you're like myself, light worker, trying to help others, and your life has been full of lots of experiences that sort of help you grow and evolve, learn some lessons along the way, and not all of them were great, and maybe a lot of them were projected upon you by certain people. And if you've dealt with an abusive past person, especially if they're narcissistic, there's lots of trickery along the way, manipulation, gaslighting, coercion, control, and or the lack thereof. So they are happily to inform you that they lawyer up based on what they are trying to achieve. They have a lot of different people in place in case they get themselves in trouble. And what they may need, they have help for. So they're happy to share that information with you. And they seem to always have the money to do so based on some of the other things they were doing. So, for instance, I recently was part of a Zoom hearing. Now I wonder why it had to be Zoom. But of course, there wasn't COVID at this time. But now I understand why. So the experience itself had to do with my dad's probate and, of course, past person and their illegal activity and therefore suspicious death, if there is one, right? Read between the lines. So the attorneys that were present, it was brought to my attention that there was a probate hearing. I'm sure I was aware or supposed to be aware, but maybe the mail went missing, right? Or an email. So brought to my attention, I addressed it and was entered into the Zoom hearing. And once I was announced, of course, my internet magically was a little compromised, we should say, by other special people that knew I'd be on. And then the judge enters in, sees my name there, and recuses himself. Interesting, right? And the clerk is laughing, like busted out laughing in court. And I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me, and I'm laughing too, because clearly something is funny. And, when things unfold and unpack, there's a reason why. They're probably part of some elite group, and they know each other, right? So he can't really, maybe legally, rule in anybody's favor. It's probably best to recuse yourself, right? Maybe that was the right thing for him. Otherwise, immediate throw in jail time, right? Maybe, who knows? These guys are all bought and paid for if they're on the down and down, not on the up and up. So then you just are dismissed and things go on. In the meantime, and prior to that, you had been emailing with one of the attorneys in the group of the firm. And then when it's assigned to somebody else a few weeks later, happened to know the same judge, had to deal with other experiences with a lot of the judges in that county. And for certain, because of past experience, you're a past person and they're monkeys, flying monkeys, and all of their attorneys, everybody lawyers up when you have something to hide, right? Normal people maybe need one. Just one stand-up person, right? But no, these guys lawyer up for all their situations. So you get in there, you're allowed in, because you've been emailing one attorney, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of people on there. People with cell phones name certain things, and they're not announced in who they are, but you have to be announced, like you're supposed to raise your right hand and all that. Judge comes in, and you're sort of put on mute, and the other side seems to also have some connection problems, as you do, but you're savvy enough because you've learned a few mad skills based on your past person always trying to sabotage your whole life, everything, like every aspect of it. If you can imagine it, it can be sabotaged by dark people and their little voodoo, hoodoo, witchcraft, and flying monkeys. People trying to threaten you, take you out, scare you, harm you, all areas of your life. So you're sitting there and listening to all the cases, right? People that have guardianship and loving families, and then you get the strange, they're on house arrest and they want to take their kid with their new partner across to a different state so they can go have fun, and there's a little battle between the real mom and, the one who gave the children birth, and, there's clearly some house arrest situations going on. You're let to hear all these things. So I could tell you each case, right? Sitting there waiting. Finally get called, and it's like children are seen and not heard. It's like, is this shit from the past? Wait a minute, I'm sitting here. You can clearly know I'm on. People know I'm on. The attorney you are emailing is on. And then, of course, there's a few of her associates that are on, right? And they're the ones magically speaking for the party that's involved. And, of course, you're there because it's attached to your dad's probate. You wave your little hand while the other person they're feeling sorry for that person, and they're talking about it. And sure enough, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. And the one attorney speaking up perjures herself, clearly knowing she's in the wrong. But interesting enough, your past person says, well, they don't have to divulge everything. They can just claim. There's always loopholes, right? Of course, there's loopholes in everything. Well, I didn't know she was communicating with her. Well, you were, because you had to send a bunch of pictures, which took a lot of your time, of all your dad's things. And of course, your probate attorney told you had to, because there was also firearms involved and everything else, because your dad's stuff is still somehow not settled, right? Magically, how it's not settled, because it's part of the past who also wants that money. So anyway, you were told you had to do this, and so you did, but you were dismissed like you didn't matter. Well, it does matter, because I have other siblings that are invested with wanting some of these things, and maybe it's money attached. Magic, right? Money. To which I'll get nothing, because it's 3 years later now, and they stole everything else from you, sold it off for the money and whatever you've spent and your time, and you have other people. You might give $50. Okay, fine. I'd rather have a nice meal with my family, have a picnic, and celebrate, right? And my dad, my poor dad, who would call this a bunch of horse shit, which it is, and all these guys are pricks, which they are. I'll never master the K on the end, but thank you, Dad, for the smallness of the vast sensation. This is all horse shit. The justice system not only fails you, but they fail your family. And they're not living with integrity. But there's a loophole. One of the associates can say, no, she didn't ask for anything. Or the other party, nobody opposed, right? Nobody opposed. They don't use your name. You're not heard. You're not valued. You're looked at as thieves. And they happily tell you that in an email. And then they're like, oh, shit, I can't retract that because they've heard other things that aren't true. And they tell you that in an email, which is not correct. So that can be used against them, right? In the court of law, if anybody cares to hear it. So what do? You're dismissed. The case is closed. Judge is happy to sign off on all of these, situations, we'll call them. And you're left with nothing. But yet they have things that belong to you, which you laid out in emails after emails. And then you were snapped back at, literally, by unbiased or biased people. Your stuff is missing. You know exactly where it is, and you have pictures of where it is in locations of your past person's home. So no, this is not okay, and the legal system failed you. And then you go back to your attorney and have to say something. And he's like a very faithful man, and he has no words to say. So I gave him a few words of my dad's, and he laughed. And it's unjust. The justice system failed. One more time, me. The person who's been abused all along, laughing at you, projecting that you are some criminal, and they've set you up for every failure possible. And they get away with it. Imagine that. So, what you can do, and I have done, because attorneys, law firms have perjured themselves, write letters to the judge directly. And I have in the past brought that attorney back to court in front of the same judge. And then you are somehow aggressive, but you want the shit solved because you need to move on with your life. But your past person says, no, that's the only time they can see you, whether it's Zoom or in person. Well, in person, it's not safe because you have an order of protection or a harassment order on them. So they do Zoom. Maybe it was COVID, maybe not. Thank goodness. Or you'd have to hire an entourage like they do to protect themselves from all their illegal activity and situations. So, don't give up. Write letters until they're tired of getting your letters. And the magical thing is now, you can actually load them up yourself from your own computer. You don't have to mail them, to which I've done in the past, and they mail it back to you. Or they keep it loaded up, and then they don't give it back to you. So never send your originals. Always make copies. That's happened to me before. You send the court your information, spend a lot of time giving it to them to save yourself because you have facts. So if it was original, they now have it. Just be mindful. The justice system has to work for you because it is the law, right? You would think so. Just remember who you're dealing with and defend yourself, or find somebody on the up and up that will help advocate for you. Trust me, I know, it matters. So I hope this helps today. And so it is. Namaste.